Hello, folks. Welcome to our Fireside Chat. This is episode 2, and this is a monthly program from the IIT Madras Alumni Association Trivandrum chapter. I'm the host, Rajiv Srinivasan, class of 78 BTech Electronics, and I'm going to introduce our guest in a minute, but here is a little bit of a process check. What we'll do is we'll have Mr. CMA give a 5-minute introduction to the topic, and then we'll ask a few questions, and that should take us to about half an hour, 35 minutes. And then we'll have an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. And for that, what I request you to do is to go look at the chat button at the bottom. And if you click on that, a chat window will come up. So your questions can be asked there. And what I'll do is I will pick a few questions and pass them on to Mr. CMA. So that's the process that I would like to request you to follow. Okay, and some more people have joined. And I request everybody to turn off their video as well, because it's a little distracting otherwise, because your thumbnails will be moving. Okay, great. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. CMA Nayar, who is our expert guest for the day. And Mr. CMA, let me just give you a brief introduction. He is BTech Electrical 1965. He also underwent executive management training at INSEAD. He was with Alstom T&D, Transmission and Distribution, I imagine. He was VP of Global Sourcing and VP of Global Industry Strategy in France, and he spent a number of years looking after and setting up their factories in Europe, Asia, including China, Mexico, Brazil, and India. So he's got a lot of visibility into how to run a global business. Maha asked me a question. Maha, I don't know how to do that, so
can you
I will.
Sorry about that. If you don't mind,
yeah.
if you can just change me back to host so that I can do that.
I don't know how to do that either.
Oh, just the 3 dots. If you just click on the 3 dots, the participants, you see my name, you will see the 3 dots that says make me reclaim. Okay, I can reclaim host. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you. Sorry about the disturbance. Yeah, go ahead.
No problem. Right. So, right. Okay. Yeah, and so he spent many years, as I said, in setting up these joint ventures and factories. And after he retired from Alstom France, he moved to Alstom T&D India and Areva T&D India and set up 5 state-of-the-art factories in India. So he's got a lot of experience in international manufacturing, but also of considerable interest to us is he's an expert in international relations. He and I have appeared regularly on Malayalam TV discussing international issues, especially with America. Of course, America makes a lot of noise, and so it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Mr. CMA Nayar to today's Fireside Chat. Mr. CMA, would you like to go ahead and give your opening statement now?
I will. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today's topic, as that you have noticed from the program, we will be talking about the situations that is created by the different actions by the US government on tariffs and related issues. And if you would like to have a background of the whole situations, it is necessary to see how United States came to this situation. Now, during the Second World War, after the Second World War, US was the biggest industrial power, and in fact, it was the biggest exporter too. Till 1975, US had a positive trade surplus, and also inflation was quite high. In fact, up till then, the US was actually a manufacturing giant in the real sense, exporting anything and everything to any place. But then started the situation where the inflation started going up, and it came to double digits by 1979, and the trade deficits started going up. And in fact, it is on account of these two phenomena. President Carter lost the election in 1980, and President Reagan got elected in 1980 and took charge in 1981. So his immediate attempt was to stimulate the economy quickly, and so he decided to permit cheap imports of goods from other places, particularly from China, and the inflation started coming down. He also tax concessions and investment stimulus, etc. And within about a year or two, he has been able to bring down the situation to a reasonably acceptable position from the economic sense, but with a huge price. That huge price was actually the debt. The national debt was going up, trade deficit was going up. And all the presidents who followed him thought this is the best way to create a feel happy situation in the United States. And the sum total of the situation is that the United States has got about $37 trillion of debt, national debt, and it has about $1.2 trillion of trade deficit. Now, this is the background in which we have to see what President Trump is trying to do certain actions. President Trump always had a slogan, "Make in America, make America great again." From the perspective of a president, these slogans are laudable, but the problems are how exactly he can put into action and operation these slogans. Now, make in America would actually mean that the manufacturing activities in the United States will have to go up, and therefore there will be less need for import of goods, and therefore there will be less of trade deficit. But sadly, what happened was, on account of the globalization, many of the manufacturing activities from the United States were transferred to other countries like China, and it was not possible for these companies to bring it back to the United States for two reasons. One is
Narayan, please mute yourself.
Ooh.
Sorry, not able to hear you. 1 minute. Yeah, go
Audio
ahead.
is gone.
Yeah, go ahead. Audio is gone.
No, Rajiv and CMA both are on mute. That is the
Yeah,
problem.
can you just now see?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unmuted, and let's see. I'll have to unmute CMA as well. Okay, so so my question there is, so I think it's very reasonable for Trump to say, I would like to bring manufacturing back to the US. So good desire. But as you said, in the face of a massive debt burden, 37 trillion, and the huge debt servicing costs that go along with it, it may or may not be possible. But what is it that he has done now in terms of India specifically, right? I initially thought that it was just an opening gambit. He was just trying to negotiate us down to a solid tariff thing. But now it looks a little bit more like it's a tantrum where, he's not able to get any traction with the Russians and the Chinese, but he is now beating up on India. So what is your reaction to all this? Does this mean, for example, that the Quad itself is dead, which was supposed to be not a military alliance, but an economic alliance? Now, CMA is muted, Maha. You'll have to unmute it. I'm sorry that
It is, he can
should-
unmute. Should I will already.
CMA, can you? He may not be able to do that. Can you?
No,
Yeah,
no,
he's
he has
okay.
done it.
CMA,
Yeah,
you're unmuted. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Now, in fact, there are, I mean, can I go ahead with the response?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in fact, there are two questions that you have asked now. And the first is about what exactly President Trump is trying to do with India on the trade front. Now, he has always been holding the point of view that he can put pressure on countries for having a favorable trade agreement with the countries, and which he has been trying to do with India. Now, it's a fact that the United States has one of the lowest percentage of tariffs in the whole world, and India has got fairly high tariff on many items. Now, his point was that India has to reduce its tariff for the items that are coming from the United States into India, and he wants particularly the agricultural products, the farm products, to come into India. India has to open India's market in that. This has been his basic requirement. And the trade negotiations, although it has progressed sufficiently well, they got actually stuck because some of these points were not acceptable to India, particularly opening the Indian market, the farm market, to the United States. So that is
dairy and agriculture.
Pardon?
Yes. No, I said, yeah, dairy and agriculture.
Yeah, that is the reason. Farming in general, you know, in his mind, other things also, soya bean, even grains. In his mind, so many things are there because that is all what his constituents want. The states, the 6 or 7 states which are prospering on agriculture, in their interest, they want to do all this. But now what happened is India was not willing to do that, and then it was said that the discussions will take place again, and we will come to an agreement by August end or September end, something like that. In between came this controversy about his role in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, and he wanted India to recognize or acknowledge his lie that India came into this type of an arrangement with Pakistan because he asked us, which is of course not true. India could not have done that, and any government which does that will be paying a very heavy price in the country for such type of an act and accepting a lie. So he got irritated, and then of course he came out with 25% tariff. 25% tariff itself is high, which will make Indian products non-competitive. Many of the products non-competitive in the United States. And then all of a sudden he started the Russian oil India should import, and therefore he raised it to 50. But between 50 and 25, there's no real impact in the US import because in any case, Indian products are not competitive. So he has the impression that by putting pressure on India like that, India will stop the import of Russian oil. But the fact remains, so many countries, including the United States, are importing things from Russia. And then I singling out India for this purpose. He has something behind his, something in his mind that he somehow wants to make India succumb to his pressures to recognize his role in this ceasefire. This is not going to happen. So this is the reason how all these things have happened. Now,
but the Quad, isn't this affecting the Quad?
Quad. I think subsequently we will talk about the real impact of this afterwards. But the Quad, the Quad is a diplomatic dialogue arrangement among the 4 nations that the Japan, United States, India, and Australia. Japan, United States, and Australia, they are partners or allies in different forums. India is an outsider. He wanted to bring, rather, United States wanted to bring, is not Trump, it was actually before also, wanted to bring India into this fold to use India as a leverage against China. This is the only purpose that they wanted this India to be inside that. But India was not falling to this trap, was always taking an evasive position, and it continues to take an evasive position on that matter. It has been taking evasive position in this matter up till now, and I do not know what will happen in the near future. Probably it will take certain positions. which may not be probably in the interest of the United States.
Right. So what this leads to is, in effect, a breakdown in the Indo-US strategic relationship, which we thought existed. Now, Trump has, with one, fell swoop, essentially told India that India is irrelevant, which leads me to a question. Does this mean that, something that's been bandied about for a long time, the G2, that the world has been divided into a sphere of influence for America and a sphere of influence for China? Is that now a reality? And in which case India doesn't matter anymore. And furthermore, India will become a vassal in that scenario, because Asia will be under the hegemon China. Not only India, but Japan and Australia as well. All will be vassals to China, and America gets the West and the North and South American continents, Europe, and the Atlantic Ocean, I suppose. So is that what we are seeing here? Because the other thing that rather surprised me is the insistence by this gentleman, Peter Navarro, one of his aides, who keeps saying that India can stop this war. It's Modi's war. And I saw something particularly interesting today. India is now the biggest supplier of petroleum products to Ukraine, which is, really kind of a strange thing. Here is India buying crude oil from Russia, processing it and selling it to Ukraine. So where is this whole thing coming from? I mean, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to essentially drive India into China's arms, just like he already drove Russia into China's arms with this whole Ukraine thing. Sorry, it's a complicated question, but please see if we can respond. And by the way, guys who are on the call, please ask questions, as I said, in the chat window, and we'll be able to have Mr. CMA answer them towards the end of this program.
Yeah, the reality of the situation was there has never been a real strategic relation between India and the United States, because it is true that from Bush Jr. onwards, they were trying, probably even Clinton, they were trying to create an ambience in which they will try to bring India into their fold as a strategic partner in expression, but not in reality, because United States is not in the habit of having strategic partners who are not subservient subordinates, which India certainly does not want to do. So India's relations with the United States have always been transactional, and in my view, it will continue to be transactional again. Now, the point that you are trying to say is, why was United States trying to take India into their fold? It was only to counter China. There was no other objective in that. And then, of course, India has been one of the biggest buyers of arms, and the United States wanted to sell their arms to India in a big way. Now, both these were not happening in the sense India was not actually, India was diversifying its procurement of arms, and India was depending really on the Soviet Union for the procurement of arms. And Soviet Union, which has always been, rather it was an all-weather friend of India, had a privileged relations with India and vice versa. And this is how the whole thing started. And the Russian oil purchase is something which honestly, all these criticisms I do not understand, because the Russian oil purchase is a subject which was discussed in G7. G7 had taken a decision, a price cap, that any country or any nation which wants to buy, anybody for that matter, wants to purchase Russian oil cannot go below a certain price cap, that is $60. Even now it is so.
Right.
So India has been doing that. So that is why they cannot stop India legally from buying Russian oil. In fact, others are also, China is also doing the same thing. Latest I heard is Saudi Arabia has been buying oil from Russia.
From Russia.
Cheap oil from Russia for refining and selling at a higher price.
Right.
And now, one of the criticisms that has been put on India is that India is refining this oil, and Indian companies are making a lot of profit, and they are reselling it to other countries. Making profit is any company's objective, and a capitalist country
Right.
like United States should not talk such terms, but they are doing it.
So,
Now,
right.
where exactly is India selling? India's bulk of the refined products that India is selling is going to Europe, and from Europe, perhaps even to the
To
United
America.
States.
Yeah, yeah.
See, most of these companies which are buying, there are two at least from Switzerland, which are dealing with these things, and they are sending it to the United States. And I understand even ExxonMobil is also involved in this. So therefore,
Right.
all this criticism that India is buying Russian oil and making profits all unfounded. And this Peter Navarro's criticism, we cannot take that seriously, because anybody who calls it as Modi's war, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. I think it is not even worth responding to such comments.
Well, two responses to that. One is that, see, maybe this price cap actually has an impact on the fracking types, the fracking oil types in the US, because they're going out of business because they need a higher price, one. The second is there may be other OPEC countries, okay, who are finding that here's an opportunity for them to jack up the price, right? They'd like prices to go up, and this is preventing them. The fact that there is this Russia-India trade. So I wonder if there are third parties who are involved in this that are kind of putting this into Navarro's head.
It is probable, but the point is, this decision actually is taken by G7 to permit Russia to sell oil at certain price, and that actually was promoted and actively supported by the United States to keep the price of oil low.
Right.
So
what I'm saying is that, that may now be counterproductive for US producers, as an example.
Could be.
The
that
shale oil guys.
Yeah, that could be. That could be, and also for others, other producers also. It could be. It could be. We don't know. The vested interest behind this could be the oil industry as well. That is quite possible. And if India had not bought this much, India and China both together, had not bought this much of oil, the prices of oil would have gone up.
Gone up. Yeah. Let me just switch to another point that you brought up about weapons. See, one of the complaints is that India is buying 36% of its arms from Russia. Well, now, what's interesting is that India used to buy 70%, right? So it's come down drastically. But India, on the other hand, is probably not buying as many American weapons as they would like. For example, the F-35, which they've been trying to induce India to buy. And as we know, from Trivandrum, we had this strange episode of an F-35 sitting in the airport in the rain for like 3 weeks. And that was a really bad advertisement for it. So do you think the arms part is another major sticking point here, that they really want us to become dependent on them on the arms side?
It is certainly the case, but India is actually, you are talking about the reduction in percentage of imports from Russia. That is because Russia has helped considerably India to indigenize the arms, type of arms that they were supplying, which US is not prepared to do. US will never do. Now, the point is, the supply of arms from the United States to India, it has come down. Instead, even when India was going out from Russia, India was trying to source from other countries, it went to France, and it did not go to the United States. So the Americans are very unhappy about it. They are not in a position to supply the arms that they expected to supply to India, and this is probably one more reason why they are taking the strong positions against India.
Well, I look at it in terms of national competitiveness. In many manufacturing industries, America is not so competitive anymore. The only places they are really good are in aerospace and in defense, right? They have very good products, I suppose. And now if India is refusing to buy those products, then that's a blow to American manufacturing. And the other part of it is that there's been a lot of negative feeling about Boeing recently in India after that Ahmedabad crash, right? And, you must remember that Air India has ordered, I think, 500 planes or something, and Indigo, an equivalent number from Boeing. Okay, so that's a huge number of planes on order. Now, do you think that those orders are in some kind of jeopardy now, that India India may move away from American products.
The Boeing story is different because Boeing, Airbus and between Airbus and Boeing, the Indian decision, not only Indian, many other countries, the decision to go in for Airbus is on technical grounds and on price grounds. That is on one side.
Right.
And Boeing itself is in deep trouble, and financially they are in deep trouble.
Right.
And the real reason for the troubles of Boeing, it has nothing to do with the US government, except of course there are certain concessions which they have not been given, But I think the business with Boeing is, I think, a commercial transaction based upon merits, whereas the arm purchase is something which normally done by state-to-state negotiation, and that is not taking place as the United States wants India to do. I think some Predator drones are ordered now, but probably that's also not huge quantities.
Well, there's also the Poseidon, the submarine hunter-killer aircraft, and India has put that purchase on hold, which unfortunately it's a bad idea, but because I think we need the Poseidons. But anyway, so there is this question of the arms issue being a big problem. And let me switch to one more question here. See, we've been talking a lot about merchandise, goods, physical products. What about the digital and services market? Because I would imagine there is a significant surplus trade that the US does with India, some of which may be invisible because it's being routed through third countries like Ireland or something. But the big tech, the Googles and the Amazons and Microsofts and so forth, they do tremendous business in India. Plus, there is also the value of Indian data, because everybody keeps talking about data being the new oil. So how does all that kind of come together in your mind? The non-goods part of it in terms of trade surpluses and trade deficits and so on.
Now, if you look at the service part, I mean, keeping apart the digital tax and all that, which are not really visible in the accounts. Now, if you take the service parts, service in the traditional sense, now its account is balanced. In 2024-25 or 2024 for the American year, the account is balanced at around 41 billion US dollars. There is no surplus, not really much surplus, a very, very small difference in that. So it was not the case some years ago, but I think now with serious attempts to balance the trade in service, I think we have come to that more or less acceptable level from the balance trade point of view. But from the other question that you are asking, I honestly, I do not know. All the items that you are mentioning, are these things measurable, identifiable, and taxable? I do not know.
But they're valuable. And I think we're playing fast and loose with data in India, right? Anybody can come in and plunder Indian data. It's a bad idea, right? So that needs to be something, not even local content is enforced. You're not required to keep your servers in India. So there is if we keep talking about the goods trades deficit, I think we're losing out on a whole bunch of other factors that should be also brought up in these negotiations. So that's just there are missing items there. But let me move on to one more question, which is, given all this, what is the strategy that, given the way things are now, there could be there's a question from Professor Manoj. What is the short-term strategy, medium-term strategy that you see that India should be able to now take forward to kind of ameliorate this problem? What is your opinion on that?
Now, in fact, there is an issue in short term. Short term means, let us say, during this financial year, because this is sudden, all on a sudden it has come, and the impact of the tariff in the United States could be for about 50 billion goods, $50 billion of goods. It could be in that range. And now, further, if the tariff, even if it is 25% tariff, Indian products will not be by and large, competitive in the
Better than,
US
yeah.
market, except with the products which are going to certain segments. That means India marketing through the process of segmentation or marketing through the process of differentiation. Now, those products may still not be affected much. It may not be considerable, but it may not be affected. But the rest of it will be affected. Even with 25% tariff, it could have affected. But I must say one thing. One of the things that we talk about always in the recent context is, in Indian context, we are talking about the impact on textiles, apparel, and the
Seafood.
clothing.
Yeah.
So this is one thing which is said to be very much affected, and which could be affected. And if you take India's domestic market, or rather, it is 125 billion is the total activity in India, of which about 40 billion are being exported, and of which about 5.3 billion goes to the United States. So if you say that the impact of this 5.3 billion into the United States will affect India massively, that may be an exaggeration. But this will affect to some extent. And my point of view in that is, instead of generalizing that as an issue, that is the tendency nowadays in media and by experts as well, we have to have a look at case-by-case studies. Which are the industries which will get affected? And whether these industries can be persuaded to put their products into the domestic market. But I must say one thing, in the textile business, India is not in the lower end of the products in the United States market or in the global market. India is by and large in the higher end market, branded product by and large. And therefore, India is not competing with countries like Bangladesh or Pakistan or even
Vietnam.
Thailand. But India is competing with China, as a matter of fact, in the US market. And the Chinese products are slightly costlier than Indian products. And with the tariff difference, if there is any, at the moment I don't find any, but if there is a tariff difference which will come, Indian products will become more effective. But the real solution for that, for India, is to see whether these products, the high-end products, could be marketed in India. One of the things which I found through my analysis is that market price in India for most of these products is higher than the export price. And I was always thinking like that, but I did not have the figures. But when day before yesterday, when I heard Sabu Jacob coming into the television and saying that he has started marketing his products meant for US in India with much higher profits. So if that is true, which I think is true, otherwise he will not come and say that. So we have to see these companies which are making these products for the United States market, whatever portion they cannot afford to close down, in fact, they have to continue the activities. Whether they can put it in the local market immediately, otherwise, what type of help they would need to continue their production, to hold the production in stock, so that they can put that in the market as and when it is possible, so that they don't reduce their output, they don't actually lay off their people.
So some kind of an export subsidy. That's what you're talking about, right?
It is not an export subsidy. Export subsidy is already given. That is why the prices are low, actually, for India. And I must also say, these fellows who buy in the United States, particularly from India, they are selling at a much higher margin. So you just cannot compare the market price in the United States and India directly, because the prices at which they buy, it is much lower than what they are, because their margins are so high.
The intermediaries are making all the money.
Pardon?
Yeah. The intermediaries are making all the money there.
Yeah. And that is how they operate. And the situation comes, they are not willing to sacrifice that. They want to put it on the supplier, which is not practically possible.
Right.
That is on
this leads to
textiles.
Yeah.
And
let me ask another question. One second. There's another related question from Dr. Subramaniam. He asks about gems, etc., textiles, which would affect labor-intensive small companies in India. So maybe you could, he's talking about the labor effect. Will people get laid off? And, what will be the impact? Because these are MSMEs. And I would also add shrimp and other seafood exports from Kerala. There's also labor, labor intensive. So Would that,
The-
so you're
yeah.
saying that to prevent this causing massive problems in the labor market, the country has to figure out some way of, in a way, supporting
Right,
these
right.
manufacturers?
Right.
Yeah, go.
But the question that you just now asked, the
Yeah,
answer, there are two elements. One is a manufacturer who is exporting, like Kitex or the big companies
Yeah.
like V-Star and all that. They are doing the export directly. That is one type of business, which I have been talking about up till. The other is the small and medium scale industries. Their products are being exported through exporters. Exported
Okay.
from India, that is. The
Yeah.
exporters collect these materials from here, make huge profits, and then they send it to the different places. Particularly when you're talking about the shrimp, that is,
Yeah.
actually the story has come out now that the exporter from India, actually, this is with respect to Andhra, the exporters from India started asking the producers of shrimp. Shrimps are farmed, it is not taken from the sea. The
Yeah.
shrimp farmers to reduce the prices to the extent
Mm.
25%, otherwise we cannot export your product. And
Mm.
then the immediate response of the farmer, I mean, farmer is a straightforward person. If you
Mm.
want us to reduce the price by 25%, my answer is very clear. We will stop production.
Okay.
We will go out of this shrimp business. We will go to something
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
this is the type of things which will happen to the small and medium scale operators if they have choice.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
don't have choice, that is a question probably by Subramaniam. If they don't have choice, they have to be helped. How exactly we can help them is actually the government agencies will have to catch hold of these intermediaries who are trying to squeeze them and then see to it that they make the sacrifices in the margin and then try to protect these people to a great extent so that they don't suffer on account of this particular situation. This is my feeling on the situation.
No, the other part of it, the answer would be, let's look at other export destinations as well. Really try to export to the global south, right? South America or Africa or whatever. So that's another answer. Let me ask one more question that is from Gangan Pratap, or Dr. Gangan Pratap. He says, what can India make that it can sell to China, Russia, and ASEAN? What can India make that it can sell to China, Russia, and ASEAN? Now, I have an answer for that. My answer would be software. Software, we got to make really good, high quality software. Anyway, that's just one possibility.
Yeah. Now, I think the question is very valid. Actually, if you look at what happened with the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, in fact, there was an analysis done by Saraswat, who is a member of the NITI, who was previously DRDO director. He has made an analysis because the government asked him to do that. And he has come to the conclusion that the free trade agreement with ASEAN was a net loss for India from the product point.
Yeah.
Because they were all exporting their products to India. India was not able to export Indian products to these countries. There must be a reason for that. What are those reasons? For example, a country like India, which is importing 18 billion worth of edible oil, there's a problem with India. So what do we do? What do we do to produce ourselves? These are all the things. ASEAN is supplying mostly such items, agricultural products. So there is a problem of competitiveness for some of the products that India is making for selling in the low price markets like ASEAN. And in Russia, I think there will be certainly a market portion where India can negotiate and then sell because there is nothing called real competition in Russia for products from many other places. And China, I think it is possible only through negotiation. On the manufactured products, I think it will be very difficult for us to find enough possibility for exporting to China.
Okay. Here's another question for you from Narayan Komarat. He says, the US used to bully Japan and China to raise the value of their currencies. So why should India not oblige and take this window of opportunity? I think what he's saying is, the US dollar has fallen by some 10, 12% against a basket of currencies. But the rupee has fallen considerably, I think like 5% this year against the dollar. So what he's saying is, why don't you appreciate the rupee? What is your response to that?
Now, the difference is Well, Japan, I think it is free floating currency, and China is managed floating, and India is also managed floating. And it is true that the Chinese currency had appreciated considerably during the last 20 years. Now,
Mhm.
I have seen the yuan at 12, 15, etc., and now it is 7. So it has appreciated considerably. But that China is doing that with careful calculation and after analyzing the direct impact of that. That is all right with respect to China. But India actually is not doing such things. The only mechanism that India is doing
Mm.
for supporting the Indian rupee is actually foreign exchange operation in the open market. Now, there are limitations for that, and India is also not willing to do beyond the limit. And it's a
Mm.
fact that Indian currency has been weakening, and as you said, 5 to 6% during the last 5 or 6 months. And I do not know whether the government of India has any tool with it right now to make it appreciated if United States is requesting for that. But I'm not sure whether US has made a request to India. But even if US makes a request, I think it will be difficult for India to do that.
Yeah, I think what he was referring to is the Plaza Accord in 1985 or something, where the US forced Japan to massively revalue its currency upwards, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
ended up in causing significant disruptions to Japan. But I think what his point was that, why is the rupee collapsing against a collapsing dollar? I don't have a really good answer for that. So as you said, maybe the Reserve Bank will have to do more in terms of supporting it. But let me move on to another question. This is from
Yeah,
Anil
please.
Kumar Pandala, and what he's saying is, it appears that the tariffs may have to be withdrawn, but one of the fallouts from the tariff war has been the emergence of Pakistan as an entity backed by Trump. So he says, is it possible that the US could make Pakistan another Taiwan in terms of technology and finance support, which would be a lethal hit to India? What is your opinion on that?
No, you see, when you talk about comparison of countries like Taiwan, Vietnam, and all that with countries like India and Pakistan and all that, there is nothing to compare with the work culture. So, therefore, the idea that Pakistan can be made another Taiwan, personally, I think it will never happen. India also cannot be made like that. Now, that is basically because of the work culture. Now, these are countries, Taiwan and Vietnam, and they're all countries with work culture is completely different. And therefore, it will not happen. Secondly, for bringing that type of a situation in Pakistan, Pakistan has to be a stable nation, which is not the case. So, therefore, even if Trump wants to make use of Pakistan as a counterweight in India, I don't know whether he has any such intention. But the deep state in the United States has only one intention, that is about Pakistan should be available as a sort of an operating place for defense protection against the countries like Russia and China and perhaps even India.
And India too, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying Pakistan's value is limited. It's not, it's
Very
it's
limited.
more of
That's
a
what I think.
very limited. Okay. Another question. This is from Phyllis. So she says, are you suggesting one way for an agri-produce exporter like cardamom or tea to retain production is to sell in the domestic market, and he will make more or the same margin still? That's the question.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear properly.
Yeah, it says, okay, agriculture producer like an exporter like a cardamom or tea creator or farmer, can they maintain their production by selling in the domestic market? And will he make more margin or less margin? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, is a matter to be evaluated. I tried, in the case of textiles, I said that because now it has improved. I tried to find it for the coir, and I understand from someone who has been in that business for the past 3 decades, it will be difficult to make an assessment because the market requirements are different for coir. What is required in the United States is very different from what is required in India or even Europe. So therefore, whether the market price in India is high in comparison to the market price in the United States, very difficult to make an assessment. For me, very difficult to make an assessment now. About the spices, coffee, tea and all, it is all through auction and international prices. So it will change depending upon the situation.
Okay. Okay. All right, our final question then, because we have reached the 45-minute mark.
Right.
The Suresh Kumar Nambiar says, I don't think what Sabu said is true if that is a Kitex person. If that is the fact, why was he selling 90% of products at less profit to the US instead of the domestic market? So
now this is, I mean, I find no reason why Sabu is telling something which is not true. But the answer to the question is, he himself had said he had not realized that there is such a big market in India. That is what he was saying. Now he is forced to face a situation where products meant for the United States had to be sold. And when he tried, he found this. And he found the Indian market is having a higher price than the US market. This is what. But we cannot generalize these things. Whether everybody else is having the same situation, I do not know. But I have a feeling that we are talking about high-end products, textile and clothing and all. India is actually in the high-end products. It could be true. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll take just two more questions because we definitely are running out of time. Here's Madhusudan Chakravarti. He says the immediate challenge for us is the $100 billion US dollar deficit with China that India has. And what is the solution for that? Because China is no friend of ours. So how do we, reduce the trade deficit with China is his question. He's saying, forget the US for the moment.
Yeah. This is a very, very important question because India cannot afford to continue to import huge amounts of things from different places, not only from China, as I said about ASEAN. So India's trade deficit, 95 or 100 billion, is actually, and a nation like India can.
Unsustainable.
Unsustainable. So why is it happening? That is what is to be seen. Is it dumping? Probably yes. Is it because our traders are very aggressive? Probably yes. But the government of India has to see how exactly this situation can be managed so that this type of a large trade deficit does not exist and we cannot afford to. And it is true that our trade deficit in energy will continue to be there. And that trade deficit we are managing with the surplus in services. So that is all right, we can manage. But in goods, we cannot afford. Not only with China, with any country.
Anybody, yeah. Right. So final question, this is from Kevin. What might be the potential issues in rerouting Indian goods through other countries to the US? This is a game that the Chinese have played, right? They, they sell it through Macau or Vietnam or, Cambodia or something.
Yeah.
So can we do that ourselves?
It is possible. It is possible to the United States, but it is not possible to Europe. Now, why I say these things, in the US, the rules are very lax. They just don't see any of these things. So therefore, but in US, they use this, they trace the origin. Most of these products, they have to trace the origin and then they will find it is. But in the United States, they don't do that. And that is probably the reason why they are rerouting these things through different countries. I can tell you, as an answer to this question, my own experience. So when we were, setting up factory in the United States, they had a clause that 30% should be local content and all that. It was easily possible for us to show 30% by simply giving 10%. So we have to manipulate some figures and then the government will say, it's okay, it's all right. They don't verify all. But in Europe, it is not possible.
Europe is much stricter. Okay. All right. I think we should bring this to an end now because I'm sorry, there are a couple more questions. I don't think we have time to take it. It's already, 5:50. So I would like to thank Mr. CMA Nayar for a very interesting and very engaging conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir. And all the people who joined live and asked questions, thank you for that. And special thanks to Maha, who is in the US, and she had to get up early to manage this chat. So thank you very much, Maha. And
you.
we will round of applause to all of you. And we will be back next month. This is a regular program, 4th Sunday of the month. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. And this will be put up on YouTube. Okay, we'll have, this is Maha is recording it, so it'll be put up on YouTube. So any further comments and so on, you can send to me if you'd like at rajiv@alumni.iitm.ac.in. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye. So we'll stop
Thank you
the
all.
program.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.